All right, now we are on stabilization and erosion. Um, okay. A rise in sea level will cause coastal erosion, which is kind of a no-brainer, I think. And then unless people are willing to give up on what they're used to, or sell their properties, or I guess you can't sell it because nobody's going to buy it. Just leave the area. You're going to have stabilization, and honestly, in the long term, that's not going to work. But in a lifetime, it's a good chance it will. So sand may be needed to replace sand lost from longshore currents. Breakwaters, jetties, and groins act to stabilize beaches. These are artificial barriers, and they also have erosion problems with them that we'll look at in the next pictures. And then projects to stabilize coastlines. Well, they're expensive, very, very expensive. So here's an example of a jetty coming out to stop this longshore current. And so you can see it's collecting the sand here, but then the water has a lot more energy and carrying capacity, and it's more quickly eroding the beach on the other side of the wall. So if this were like an individual homeowner, imagine this guy's built himself out, a nice luxurious beach. This neighbor is not going to be so happy about it. Breakwaters, like a wall put out in the ocean. Similar things happen. You're breaking the waves before it gets to the beach here. And as you can see, breaking it here and here. But then where it gets through, I'm seeing this isn't exactly parallel again because remember the waves come in at an angle. So this is really blocking this and this. And so that gets through a lot more energy and you have the erosion even more drastic. Um, Cliff erosion. So here's a seawall where we've just, built a concrete wall right here. Riprap, just putting stuff down. Obviously, this isn't a beach you want to go hang out at, but it's protecting the properties or whatever might be up here. Um, Oh, and wave refraction. So this happens when you have a little area that's, coming out, which is where we like to put things because, then you're like surrounded by the ocean, really pretty view. But as the waves come in, they hit the shallow um, depth. They're hitting ground further out here next to this little peninsula thing sticking out. And so that slows the wave down. And so that slows down. And so then that kind of creates space for, the particles next to it can kind of move into where that space is created. And that slows down, which again creates kind of a space. This faster one comes in, sees that space. And so they kind of end up turning in. So your wave action and your energy actually gets directed towards these little points that stick out and they try to erode those faster. That's called wave refraction. And then of course, the waves. So the waves come in and they'll just eat at this. And then if it's a really big cliff, um, then they'll tear at the things low lying down here, but then you kind of undercut this up here to where you can kind of get like a overhang, and then eventually that overhang falls off. Once it's just no longer supported. Barrier islands, these again, this is the passive margins that you find these constantly changing all by wave action and longshore currents. Very, very unstable, kind of more or less temporary. But because it's so pretty, people love to build on it, as here is shown in Texas. Yeah, the sand migrates constantly with wind. And so it's almost like a lost cause. Like, what do you do? And so they do have like some seawalls in here to prevent the erosion, but really, naturally, it wants to move. And then eventually, like others seen with these longshore currents, would come in and replace that in the natural system. But we've kind of have stopped that natural system. with a lot of our development and kind of have put ourselves in a pickle. Estuaries are pretty much bays. Here's a San Francisco Bay, which is classified as an estuary. So the water here is brackish, meaning it is between saltwater and freshwater. It's not quite ocean where it's salty or that salty. And it gets all these streams coming in and feeding it. So it's kind of half-half, and we call that brackish water. Um, Form at lower valleys, under pressure from environmental changes and human activities. Season fluctuations and human interruptions can affect salinity. That is what they think is going on with that delta smelt. That they think that diverting a lot of the streams from the rivers up here increased the salinity in the bay and started harming the population of that fish there. They don't really know yet if that's the case for that fish population. So far, I think the data is not supporting that hypothesis, but they also, I don't know if they've been able to effectively recover the salinity that was there before either. Um, and then humans drain and pump estuaries to try to just, it's real shallow. So it's like, hey, I can just build here if I just drain that. And that is it for coastal processes.